Okay.
So now, from the conversation we have in macroeconomics, first of all, I would want you to have a window of the questions and the topics that are coming. I will mention the topic, the area of interest, and then we'll zero into those specific topics that have got higher frequency. Then we talk about them and we'll get back to the questions, right?
Right.
Yes. So, for example, the first question is from ISLM as well. Derive and discuss the components of IS curve. So this is from ISLM. The second one is from Keynesian cross, whereas the Keynesian cross is the one that produces the ISLM as well, the IS curve. So it's from the same stuff. Okay. So all this government conducting fiscal policy, contraction, all this is from ISLM model. Question 1. Question 2 again is from Keynesian cross, expansionary and contractional fiscal policy. This is the same thing that you find when you get to the ISLM model. Okay. The monetary policy as well in the open market. This is in the the Mondo-Fleming model. That is ISLM now in another version, like where we add exports. You will see that we'll talk about it. That's the part B of the part B and C of the question, but it's still within the context of ISLM. So question 1 and 2 from there. Yeah. Question number 3 is from the open economy. That's the Fleming model as well. The Mondo-Fleming model as well. We can do some derivations when we get here. Don't worry. It's still the same thing again. Yeah. Similarly, it was more like these papers are just coming from one topic, just to actually 2 topics. Yeah. Question 5, are you able to see it? This is from the money market. That's from, you can derive concepts from ISLM. This is the LM like as well. So from ISLM. Then B going down is inflation and you're fine. Okay?
Yeah.
Coming down to, don't worry, you'll be fine. I'm not teaching, I'm just showing you the area of interest. This is another paper, 2024 December. We've seen question 1 again is ISLM. Okay. Close the economy. Question B is C, ISLM, but you open. And now this is open. This is the Mondo-Fleming model where you had to deal with an open economy that involves other worlds. Yeah. Then again, ISLM involving the other world. So it's the same conversation. Question 1. Question 2, discuss the components of expenditure approach. Yeah, this is aggregate demand as well. We can easily talk about this, not very complicated still. This is the open economy as well. You're using the Mondo-Fleming model as well, again on question number 4. So which is the same stuff again. Again, question 5, you will still have ISLM. Okay. Then you have aggregate demand on question number 6. Okay? Are you following?
Yes.
In summary, let me just get this before I summarize. We've seen this one again. Explain the relevance of the ISLM with data of diagram, derive the ISLM curve in the ISLM, LM curve, ISLM throughout. You understand, right? All this is a
Yeah.
conversation around ISLM, marginal productivity of labor, ISLM, ISLM, and the end of the exam, open framing model, money quantity demand, and the Keynesian cross. So in conclusion of everything, as we summarize, you can see that from the pattern of questions, if the lecturer has not yet changed, whether it changes or it doesn't change, there are just the 4 key things that you talk about, right? It is basically the derivation of the ISLM curve, the Mundell-Fleming model, and the aggregate income. That's that. You got it?
Yeah.
So if you can at least understand the ISLM, like understanding, you know what I mean by understanding, like deeply understanding, like every single bit, you can answer at least almost 50% of the exam. If you know the ISLM from where it starts up to the open economy, you can link it to the open economy, then you can answer more than 50% of questions. You get it, eh?
Yes.
So for that reason, it is important that we zero in. Are you able to hear me clearly?
Yes.
I am communicating to you about the Keynesian model. Now, Keynesian model, from the word Keynes, right? John Maynard Keynes, one of the prominent economists that we have, you know, that made a proposition in 1936, trying to postulate that the government is important in the workings of the economy, right? That's what he's saying. We need the government, and it is very important. Now, this model, the Keynesian model, can be broken down into the 2 parts, okay? The goods market, which is the IS, and also the liquidity market, the liquidity and money market. Yeah, that's the LM. Don't worry, I'll slow down where there is something very important. I'll slow down. We remember there is a first question in 2023 that says, can you derive the IS, isn't it? And the other one, it says in the other, can you explain the components of IS? So I'm showing you where it comes from, all right? We start with the goods market. The goods market is ISCAV. ISCAV stands for investment savings. What it does, it draws the relationship between interest rates and what? And the level of income. So these are the key things that you find. You remember those questions that you sent me, those dash. You find these things, such questions asked. So the IS draws the relationship between interest rates and the level of income, which should bring, you know, the goods market into equilibrium. Is that clear? So you're looking at the level of interest rates and also the level of income on the other hand. That brings the market into what? Into equilibrium. That's the IS. Then in the ILM, there is actually a question, you will see it when you get there. The ILM now, which is the liquidity and money market, this one plots the relationship between interest and the level of income that brings the money market into equilibrium. So in each of the cases, in both cases, it is the relationship between interest rates and what? And the income. It brings the market, the 2 markets into equilibrium. Now, we do know very well, right, that the interest rates plays a very pivotal role in adjusting the goods market and the money market. Now I'm bringing something called the Keynesian cross. I guess you already have a bit of some ideas about it. I'm just going to amplify, the meaning. This Keynesian cross, what it does, it shows you how the income, right? The income is determined for given levels of planned investments and the fiscal policy. Remember, you meet so many questions about fiscal policy, both contractional and the expansionary.
Expansionary.
Yes. So with fiscal policy, you're talking about the government really regulating expenditure and mobilizing revenue. So the policy that guides government in revenue mobilization through taxation and the expenditure, it is what you call fiscal policy. All right. So basically, it's the adjustment of these variables, government expenditure either increasing at the same time decreasing taxes, or investments increasing, right? But there are some key things that I should want to communicate here, because this is the foundation of everything. Number one, when you talk about fiscal policy, the expansionary fiscal policy looks at expanding the output, right? Aggregate output. And our aggregate output, remember, it is made up of what? Output is equal to consumption, isn't it? And our consumption is this one. Autonomous consumption plus marginal propensity to consume times Y times minus taxes plus I plus G. We simplify the conversation like this for a start, right? This is a simple output, right? Aggregate output. We are assuming a closed economy now, right? This is a closed economy. We don't have net exports. We don't have exports, right? We don't have import. We are not involving the other world. So what we mean when we say what's this? This is contractionary fiscal policy or expansionary. Let me start from expansionary. What we mean when we say expansionary, we mean you increase G, meaning government increases expenditure at the same time, or the government can decide to reduce what? Tax. You get. So expansionary fiscal policy is G increase or reducing tax. Not both though, it's just one of them, either of them. These, they bring what we call the expansionary fiscal policy. Because remember, when you increase G, then output will increase this side, isn't it? Holding other factors constant. Or we hold other factors constant, we reduce taxes. What will happen? Consumption will increase, right? And this output will increase. That's why it is called the expansionary fiscal policy. On the other hand, this is important to understand. You should understand this. Why? Because there will be some questions that tell you, imagine the government increases expenditure.
Tax.
Can you explain what happens? So you should know that when the government expenditure increases, that's a expansionary fiscal policy. We also have restrictive fiscal policy where the government reduces expenditure and then, or they can increase taxes. This is the opposite. This one is a contractionary fiscal policy. Listen carefully. The contractionary fiscal policy is calculated to, redeem the economy that is overheating, that has got high levels of inflation. Okay, the economy is overheating. Then the government, when the economy is overheating, that is, you have high levels of inflation. The exchange rates are also high. That is to say, your currency is depreciated extremely. At that point, what you're trying to say is that you need government to intervene. So the one way of intervening is to embark on a contractionary fiscal policy where you want to reduce the effects. What do? You reduce government expenditure, and or you can increase taxes. When you increase taxes, it means you're reducing disposable incomes from the citizens, right? So this is one of the measures that is used in the short run. When you have high levels of inflation, for example, you have galloping inflation, right? Yeah. So I wanted you to pick the message properly, because you hold this conversation again and again, where taxes have been increased or G reduces, or the opposite one. This is the conversation around this. The other point that I should highlight before we go very far is that investments are influenced by what? Interest rates.
Interest rate.
Yes. And there is a negative relationship between investments and interest rates. That is to say, when interest rates increase, then investments do what? They do decrease.
Okay.
It's opposite. In case we don't want you to memorize, so that you don't memorize, you link this to the reality. When interest rates increase, you know what that means? It means loans are expensive. You're a banker, you understand these things, you're an accountant. When the interest rates go up, the average interest rates, then loans become expensive. And when loans increase, then people will not go to get loans from the bank, right? Yes, people will not get loans from the bank, isn't it? And if people have not gotten loans, they'll have nothing to invest, because usually loans play a pivotal role in pushing investments, right? The loans are very crucial when it comes to pushing investments upwards. When loans are easy to access and they are affordable, many people get loans and they will pump those funds into investments, right? You have investments, high levels of investments, when interest rates are low, right? Get this. This is where we get the ISLM from, the curve. So get this relationship. So investments always have a negative relationship with the interest rate. You reduce interest rates, investments go up, and vice versa. Right. We are good?
Yeah, following.
Having said that now, actual expenditure is the amount the households and the firms, the government, spends on these goods, and it is produced by this straight line, 45 degrees, by actual expenditure. Then planned expenditure is the amount that these guys would want or they would like to spend. Yeah. So now, when you get this, then you will be fine. Everywhere will go, because you'll be able to visualize properly. So expenditure is this side. The actual expenditure is fixed like this. Then you have the planned expenditure, which starts from somewhere here. Why should you start? Should it start from here, not from zero? It's because most of the time in consumption, we always have autonomous consumption. You get what I mean? Eh? There's always autonomous expenditure where we start from here. Okay? So now, which simply means that if G is to increase, what does that mean? If G is to increase, then this planned expenditure line is going to go upward. You get it? That's an increase in G. Because if G increases, then this expenditure will move upward. Do you understand what I mean? So that's what we mean. When there is an increase in G, the change in G, like this will move upward. What does that mean? Our Y was here. So Y will be here. So Y also increase downward. You've seen it, right? To Y2. And the opposite is true. When there is a reduction, right? Let's say from 1, it reduces to 2. You see Y now reducing again to Y2, like that. That's a conversation. You got it?
Yeah.
It has the same effect. This is expansionary fiscal policy or contractionary fiscal policy. Whether we adjust the taxes, it's still the same thing. If we increase taxes, what does it mean? C will reduce, consumption will reduce, and then also this will reduce. So the curve will shift downward. That is the effect of an increase in what? In taxes. You get it, right?
Yes.
I hope you're not getting tired, like you're following.
No, I'm following.
And then if you do the opposite, taxes now reduce, then it means that consumption will increase, even if you increase, then the line will shift upward like that. So that was very, very important to establish from the very onset. I've spent much time talking about that because it's very important. This is the same thing that I was talking about here. When G increases, you see the movement from A to the other point, right? And also output will do what? Will increase.
Increase.
Okay. Let's now derive the IS. We are now answering a question. There was that question that was saying, show how to derive the IS, right? Graphically, with an aid of diagram. This is how we start. We start from diagram A, where I communicated clearly that there is an inverse relationship between what and what? Interest rates and the investment. So you will see, because of that, the investments and the interest rate, the relationship is like this. So it's downward sloping. The investment line will be downward sloping, depicting that there is an inverse relationship. So that's where we start from. R, then R1, which is an increase. The same ones, when you draw them like this, you're following, right? You draw in the same line the other one. Okay, where will the IS will come from now? Remember, the investments are the ones that give us the output. Then we'll have the same arrows, R1 and the R2 in the same line. If you drew a straight dotted line from these, you're following, right?
Yes.
Straight dotted line. And also here you draw a straight dotted line like that. And you're done with the first part. Then when you go up on top, in the same line vertically, you have the Keynesian cross. The Keynesian cross, right? Let this Keynesian cross be of what? The change in G, for example, tax. So the line moves upward. You've seen it, right? It has moved upward. So it will change from here to the other. If you draw these lines straight downward, see what happens. You've seen what happens, eh? They come like this. Yes. So when you plot the lines where they meet like this, this is what you have. These lines, will draw a line from here, it will be downward sloping. That is the IS curve. I should rewrite it from here so that you understand. You've seen what I'm drawing?
Yes.
So these are interest rates against the investment rate. R1, R1. I've drawn the interest rates up to the end. You've seen what I've done?
Yes.
On top, I'll put the Keynesian cross. Right? This is actual expenditure. Plan the expenditure one. At this point, this is point 1. If I draw the dotted line downwards, you've seen what happens?
Yes.
And then let there be an increase, maybe in government expenditure. You've seen what happens again. Then the two lines would cross here and here. You're following, eh? Then you join them. Join. This is your IS derived graphical. Any questions?
No. It's clear.
Is this hard? No, sir. It's very easy, right? I haven't started talking about the shifting of the IS or what. I was just showing you where it is coming from. It comes from the Keynesian cross. Okay. We are good?
Yes.
Okay. Having explained this, let's come to the money and liquidity markets, the LM side. Now, with the money, it is very important. We have to begin with the supply of real money balances. Yeah?
Yeah.
So when you talk about the supply of real money balances, we need to know the relationship between the interest rates and the supply of real money balances. Okay. The supply of liquidity preference suggests that the higher interest rate will lower the quantity of real money balances. You understand, eh? The real money demanded, not the supply. Because there is supply and demand. Supply in this case can be put to be constant. Supply is constant. You understand, right? There is supply of money and also the demand of money. That is what makes the money market. You get it, right? There is money conversation, supply and demand. So now, what about the relationship between the demand of real money? The real money, this one, and the interest rate, there is a negative relationship. You get it, right? Yeah, why is there a negative relationship? Because of the opportunity cost of body demand. You get it, right? So if interest rates go up, then people, instead of demanding to hold demand, they would rather to invest that money into some interest-bearing assets, isn't it? Okay, the interests have gone up so that they can make more money from the interest rates. You understand the practical way of looking at this?
No.
Do you get it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's why there is a negative relationship. And because there is a negative relationship, holding supply constant, you will see a downward sloping curve for the money or the money demand, real money demand. Okay. Now, we know that the money market equilibrium is given by that. The demand, the real money balance is demanded shall equal the real money balance is supplied, right? This is the equilibrium in the money market. Now, for us to have this equilibrium, what is demanded, the money demanded and the money supplied, we need a certain interest. There is a certain level of interest that will bring this market to do what? To be in equilibrium. We are good?
Yes.
I repeat, the real money balances, this one, that is demanded, is negatively related to the what? To the interest rate because of the opportunity cost of holding money. But it is positively related to income.
Yes.
You get it, eh?
I understand.
Now you pick it, right?
Yeah, I understand it in this context, but when interest rates increase,
Mhm.
then it means money is going to reduce because people will hope to invest because interests are high.
The demand for money will reduce, not the money.
There's a
Okay,
demand
money
for
supply is constant. But
Mhm.
it's not related to interest rates. It's exogenous.
Okay.
So it's the demand that will reduce. And this is very practical. Imagine if you invested your money, for example, in government bonds, you are told that the interest rate is 30% or 40%. Most of us would not want to hold our money. You get, would want to just get our money and invest. You get what I mean? So the demand for holding money, the money balances will reduce. You get what I mean? Eh? Because of the high interest rates. At the same time, imagine that the interest rates are just as low as 5%. Most of us are like, instead of just keeping the money, whatever there, let's just hold our money. I mean, maybe we can do something sensible. You know that conversation? Like, there is not much interest that is earned. I think you get now the understanding.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, in short, when interest rates increase, people will hold less money and
Exactly.
invest more.
Mm-hmm.
And then when interest rates reduce, people would want to hold money than invest. So now
Exactly.
the question is, how does this affect expenditure? It means expenditure would increase, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. When we hold more money, you know, we will now spend more.
Yeah.
We are not going to spend in these interest-bearing assets when interest rates go down. What interest-bearing assets am I talking about? Things like the investments in government bonds, treasury bills, corporate bonds, all those ventures, whatever, those instruments, right? We will not invest in those because, I mean, the interest is just too low. It's not even encouraging. You're good?
Yeah.
What if now the money supply moves, reduces from the constant? If money supply reduces, then what will happen is that the interest rates will go up.
Yeah.
You've seen what happens now. The interest rates go up. That is what has happened. Because now of the reduction in money supply. So you should understand this movement. So someone asks you a normal question on paper without this graph. They say, explain what happens when money supply increases to the interest rate.
So
this is a question.
I answer? Okay, so when money supply reduces, it forces interest rates to increase, right? Yeah, interest rates will increase.
Right.
Yeah, making it no.
Just that. The question was, what happens to the interest rate when the money supply reduces?
Yeah, to force the interest rates to increase. That
Simple.
is reducing money demand. Is it?
Yeah. No, the money demand is constant. Hold on. Money supply and money demand is not the same thing. Money demand is this one, which is downward sloping. It's constant at this point. What has changed is supply. Supply is vertical. It has reduced. It has shifted to the left. At that point, you saw the rise in interest rates like that. You've seen it.
Yes.
Demand is still the same. We still want the same money we are demanding, but remember, the decision to control money supply is not us. This one is done by the central bank. It decides. You understand? We still want, the demand is still the same. We demand the same amount of money, but the decision has been made by the central bank to reduce the supply. And when they do that, you see the interest rates go up.
Yeah.
Right. Those are the effects. We don't want you to memorize these graphs. Sometimes you can connect this to the real life, like real stuff that is happening. When you reduce the quantity of money that is supplied, the interest rate should go up. Maybe let me try to be much more practical as a specialist. This is my field now. This is economics. It's our home. You don't need to struggle to explain this. Listen, what happens is this in real life. When there is a reduction in money supply, do you know what happens? If there is no much money in circulation, people demand the same money. The little money that is there with the banks, can you imagine? Imagine the bank maybe just has 5 million to give out as loans only. You get, huh? So since they have realized, these are the banks now, can you imagine? The banks have realized we have little money to give out and people want this money. What are we going to do? Let's make the costs of borrowing high so that we make much more. So the interest rates is a cost of borrowing from the bank, the loans. We'll just increase the interest rates. You get? They'll increase the interest rates so that they can make more money from the little they have. You understand, right? Did you pick that one? Or it got to be more confusing now instead of simplifying? Because sometimes you would want to simplify, can't you?
Clear.
Yeah. So basically, that's what happened. And at the time when, imagine now, this bank has, instead of just 5 million, now they have 100 million. Like the banks have just a lot of money, like the money is just there. Now they realize we have too much money and the money is just seated redundant. What can we do to motivate people? Let's reduce the interest rates. Let the cost of borrowing go down. Must understand? So the interest of borrowing will go down. Okay? When the interest of borrowing go down, the rate will go down. So this is the explanation. However, this can easily be explained by a graph like that. Simple. Demand is constant, has not been affected, but the supply has been done. What if there is an increase in supply? What do you think will happen now?
So the supply
of money
to the supply will shift to the right. Yeah, reducing the rate, the interest rate.
Yeah, so the interest will reduce to this. It's that basic. Now, and when you see these questions in an exam question, like they just say, can you explain what happens when the money supply increases? You know, or when it reduces, what happens? It gets so complicated and so confusing. And you're like, what happens? Oh my God, this is what we're talking about. Don't stress. Just sit back, relax a bit. Now let's drive the ISLM, the LM. We said what happens to the relationship now between the demand of money and the interest. We said that when the demand of money increases, the interest rates will do what? Will rise.
Right.
Supply is now constant. So when this happens, at the same supply, then you see the rates drawn like that. Like that, simple. And then you draw the SLM. It's upward sloping. The LM, sorry. So an increase in income will raises money demand, then that will increase the interest rates again. You're good? At the same time, the LM can shift now. All right? We want to be using the LM to explain everything now. What happens when money supply reduces? The interest rates will increase, isn't it? Also here, the interest rate will increase. So the LM will shift to the left. Graphically explain what happens when the supply of money increases to the LMK. Just say the LMK will shift to the left and the interest rates will go up. What happens to demand, to the what? To the income? Income will remain the same. Have you seen? It's in the same line. So income will remain fixed. Income will not be affected. But what will just be affected by this supply is just the interest rates, not their income. Now, Kabiraka multiple choice, true or false? You know, when money supply reduces, income also reduces. Income remains the same. Okay. They went to my question.
Yeah.
The ISLM model has been drawn now. Here we are, bringing everything together. The LM is upward sloping. The IS is downward slope. The IS curve is defined by this equation. You've seen? Now the interest rates, see? The investments are dependent on the interest rates. You've seen that, right? The LM curve. Kwasila. Okay?
Yeah.
Maybe I should add that. So if you have given two equations, the one for LM, this one, and also for this, just equate them to each other to solve for interest rates. That brings, like, like that. It's easy. Very straight stuff. We are good?
We are getting there.
So now, let me, at least the notes that I've shared with you are okay. We have shown how to derive that. Let me now talk about the ISLM curve. And these are the notes that you sent me. And these notes are the ones where questions are drawn. Same stuff. I've already started again. Now I'm talking about ILM, ISLM, because I've already shown you how it is built, isn't it? I've already said how it is built. Yeah. So in the short run, we know that this is the IS curve, right? That's how it is drawn by that function. LM by this. So in the goods market, we have said that government expenditure and the taxes are exogenous factors. These are independent. That's what we say. They are the ones that we are adjusting. Okay? And in the money market, what is exogenous? It's just money, amount of money, and the price. Okay? In the short run, this is what we have. We have the ISLM. So if the question is, can you, with an aid of a diagram, show the ISLM graphically, you know, in the short run? This is what you do. Just do this. And the question. Also boutique. Mana wa kwitu. So these are exogenous variables in the ISLM. So if I say ISLM exogenous variable, just add those exogenous variables from IS and those from LM. Government expenditure, taxes, money, quantity of money, and prices. Is that clear?
Yeah.
changes in short run equilibrium. Now I've come effects of what? Fiscal policy. The effects of the fiscal policy. What happens? So when I say fiscal policy, I mean the changes in government expenditure and the taxes, Wasila. Isn't it? And we know that the changes in taxes and government expenditure, they affect which curve? IS or LM?
IS.
Yes, it affects the IS. So imagine there is now the government expenditure, you know, maybe it increases, an increase in government expenditure. What do you think that will do to the IS? Just remember the equation that I drew for you. Consumption, chan plus the IR plus G. If this G changes, what happens to this scale, to this I? It increases, right?
Yes, income increases.
So it will shift to the right, IS, right. Similarly, LM is fixed. So this is what happens, right? Y is here, same income. So rate 1, what happens to the interest rates now? When this is how questions are constructed. If the government increases expenditure, explain what happens to the interest rates, what happens to the income, you know, and what happens to the IS. Okay, this is what happens. The IS shifts to the right, right? The interest rates will move what? Upwards. See what I mean? And the income will also increase to the right, like that. So income increases, interest rates increase, the ISC shifts to the right. One man. LM is constant, nothing happens to it. You have picked the message.
Yeah.
Any questions? Are there any questions?
Okay, I'm understanding. Yeah. It's thinking.
And we'll go back to the questions. I'll show you that these are the same things I was talking about. So this is what I say. You've seen it, right? Okay. So when there is a variable, listen, when a variable changes, listen carefully. Which curve is it affecting? Is it the LM? Is it the IS? What affects the LM is just the money balances and the prices. Those affect the LM. You understand? But the IS is affected by government expenditure and the taxes. Those are the exogenous variables that I've talked about. So understand carefully. And when you know which curve is being affected, in which direction, is this an increase or a decrease, right? Right. So we have already said that when there is that increase in the short run, increase in government expenditure, what does it do? It shifts the IS to the right, isn't it? We have already said. It shifts to the right. It removes the equilibrium point upward. It increases income, right? Also, interest rates increase. This is a message we are sending again and again. Then the question is, what if it is the opposite change? It's a reduction. What if it's a reduction now in government expenditure?
A reduction in government expenditure will cause a shift of the IS to the left or to the downward.
Okay.
Reducing interest rates.
Interest rates will reduce.
And income.
And also income reduce. Sharp. No need of suffering. Increase in government. Oh, we have already talked about this. So the mechanism is this. Increase in government expenditure, we have already explained this. Yeah, production of goods and services will increase. That is true. Total income will increase. We have already said that. Money, quantities of money, it will increase. At that point, money supply will remain constant. That is what it said. Money supply is not affected by that. Interest rates will increase, right? Because the firms will cut back on it. Or if the interest rates increase, what happens? Investments will do what? Will reduce. Clear?
Yeah.
That is the message we are sending. Should we need to explain this? No, sir. So here was an exercise. And actually the lecturer, all these that he was highlighting already, he brought them as questions in an exam. The same transmission mechanism, explain it now in the contractionary fiscal policy. Because the one that we are talking about increasing, that's expansionary fiscal policy. So you have to pay attention. The other way, how they cannot just, how they can ask you, they can't just say, oh, the increase in G or what. Now, next time, they will just say, can you explain the effect of expansionary fiscal policy using the ISLM? You understand? You explain the same thing we explained. Mambera? So the contractionary one is the opposite. That's the one you are from explaining. Where now the IS shifts to the what? To the inside, right? Interest rates reduce, you know those things, income reduce, all that. Then you start explaining the mechanism. If interest rates reduce, what happens to investments?
Interest rates reduce. Investments increase.
Investments will increase. General income will do what? Income has reduced. Yeah, like overall income, like at the end of everything, all mechanisms, it will increase. But the income here, the equilibrium income reduces. Huh? All that. Vivo type, no sir. This is the question. Explain. But ngatika bwela mu exam hapa so mu black ink. Explain the mechanism to explain the effects of contractionary fiscal policy. Reducing government expenditure on the national income and the short run what? Equilibrium position. You with an aid of a diagram. We are good?
Yeah.
Economics is easy, right? Now, we instead of adjusting government expenditure, you know what we're doing? We are now adjusting taxes. You got it? Now we are adjusting taxes. Reduce taxes. It will have the same effect as an increase in government expenditure. Similarly, it's part of expansionary fiscal policy. When you reduce taxes, the IS will increase to the right. Huh? Isn't it? Interest rates will go up. Income will increase. Right? Equilibrium will move from A to B. Interest rate, by the way, are on the vertical axis, output, income on the horizontal axis. That is what happens. What if it's a contractionary fiscal policy now? Then it means now taxes are what? Are increasing. Then you have the opposite. This is the conversation. Yeah. Right?
That's right.
I think when you read your notes now, you understand them. I expect them to be easier.
Yeah.
Yeah. They should be straightforward to understand. Contractionary monetary policy. Similar. Here, back again. Okay. Now, let me talk about, we have talked so much about the central government point of view. Let's now move to the central bank, not the central government, where we are implementing the monetary policy.